Hi there, welcome to Boxing Deep Dive. I'm Lynden Hosking and this is the Boxing Deep Dive show. This is our weekly show that we go over all the latest news from around the world and Australia, well, especially Australia. We've got all the usual segments, including Tazzie's Tirade, Pete's Slip and Weave, and my talking point, as well as everyone's favourite, the quiz. Speaking of Tazzie and Peter, I'm going to bring them in now. How are we going, guys?
No, good to be on. Good to be on.
Tazzie's, you're a bit blurry there, Tazzie. Hopefully you'll get a little bit better there. You must be just too fast for the screen, I reckon.
Yeah, sometimes when I go to bed, I hit the switch and I'm in bed before the light goes off.
What a weekday, boys. We've had obviously Canelo last week that we'll talk about in a little bit, but so much going on with the Aussie scene at the moment, Pete.
Mate, isn't it exciting that we've got obviously Joe Pataya as well now coming back December 4. Hardman's going to be having a run as well.
Yep.
So I mean, and I think Andrew Moloney's going to be fighting as well pretty soon, and we're going to have Andrew on the place, so we won't go too much.
Speaking of Andy, he's going to be our special guest tonight for an interview, and I'm going to give him a hang around and check out all the latest Aussie news with us as well. But just we'll get into it in a second, obviously. But Tazzie, the double header thing, I mean, it's so exciting that we've been so barren for a couple of years, and all of a sudden we're just swamped with so many great events.
Yeah, full credit to No Limits, mate.
Yeah.
They've
and Tasman fighters.
They're leading the way. Well. They're doing amazing work, the Rose Boys, and in conjunction with Fox Sports main event. Obviously, Benny Damon is a big advocate for boxing. So, mate, they're just doing huge things. We've got Tszyu, we've got Gallen, we've got the double header with Andrew Moloney. Everything big in boxing at the moment is No Limit. So hats off to them, guys. Thanks for coming to boxing and at a time that we really needed it, I guess. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah, well, and hopefully when we'll talk again about this later, but hopefully No Limit have kept the boxing train going in Australia, and with in conjunction with Tasman fighters as well, which has been good. But it'd be great, hopefully next year when now that a lot of these restrictions are being lifted, that D&L come back into the fold as well, and they start doing the boxing series. And
I was going to ask you, Lynden, why aren't I hearing about D&L? Like, I don't.
Well, I'll get.
And why is Hardman fighting on
we're talking about that,
Tasman fighters?
Yeah, I think the Hardman fight and the Opataya fight is actually a D&L in conjunction event. So that's with Tasman fighters. The Friday night one is the Tasman fighters one. The Saturday night one is in conjunction. So, but yeah, look, it's probably been hard because the D&L model is based on the Fox Sports and constant shows and being in conjunction with other promoters. We've been a part of it. So I think that's what it is, because there's actually been no fights around Australia to actually jump on the back of, or no shows. It's been really hard for the National Boxing Series to keep going. But from talking to Dean, and we're going to get him on in the next couple of weeks to talk about these cards. I've got a feeling that next year is going to be a big one for them, and they're going to look to get back in, because as you just said, it's been all No Limit for the last probably 18 months. So, and they've been doing great things. And Pete, the No Limit thing, I mean, geez, it's just been great to bring on Andy, and again he'll be on in a second. But just to bring Andy into the fold in conjunction, obviously, with Top Rank and all these other events they're putting on. It's just great for Australian boxing, isn't it?
It is. And look, once the restrictions get lifted, where Queensland can enter Sydney and Perth can get involved, and Adelaide and Tasmania, it's just going to unify the whole country, because we've been doing it tough the last couple of years with restrictions, and now things are open and the fighters all want to get it and up and running. The thing this has made us do, though, it's made Aussies fight Aussies, and we've kind of got used to it.
Yep.
So the competition's been up and running. No Limits are doing a terrific show. Obviously, I've got a show this Wednesday night with Tszyu and Untitled, and it's a terrific undercard as well. Wade Ryan's got a world-class
we'll
Japanese fight. And so I mean, they're doing great things. And Dean always does good things. I mean, Dean was part of the Duco with Higgins, and
he's the one that started all this.
Dean.
Yeah,
Dean's a good dude. I like Dean Lonergan. He's a good guy.
He's by his own admission, he's not a boxing person. He's a businessman, and it's just all about obviously putting on the best events and obviously everyone making money. But like you said, he was part of the Duco thing, Pete, and he's the one that actually started this whole sort of platform.
Yeah, and he's a great guy, and I mean, he pays well and he's professional and he's got good media people behind him.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we've got No Limits, as you mentioned, who are probably leading the way at the moment. They've got a massive start and they've got, a lot of good fighters signed up now. So they'll be putting on a lot of good shows next year. DL event on a few good shows. Tasman will.
Yeah, well, they got. I mean, at the end of the day, they got Tszyu and Gallen, and they're the two biggest main event stars in Australia.
Yeah, and they're about to.
So that's they got the two big guys there. They got the money from main event to do the undercards, good undercards of Aussie versus Aussies or Aussie versus a good international fighter. So, but yeah, obviously they got the main TV guys is Gallen and Tszyu.
And I've also, more importantly, got the up-and-comers like Liam Wilson and Sam Goodman and these types of guys.
I was going to ask you, I haven't, Liam Wilson, I haven't heard his name. He probably won't fight this year now, will he?
No, I wouldn't have thought so, Pete. I thought they'd probably give him the rest of the year off. I mean, that was a pretty tough defeat that he had, and it was, and look, I think he'll come back bigger and better. A lot of good fighters have had losses in their career, and I think he'll be
100%.
better for it to have the rest of the year off. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we've only got a month and a bit left of the year anyway. I can't see him debuting anywhere or starting up again. He'll probably train hard over the Christmas break, get into the new year and come back bigger and better.
All right, let's get into the Aussie news, Tazzy, before we get our special guest on tonight, Andy. We'll get him up first. And he's going to headline December, is it the 3rd or the 4th, I think? No, sorry, the 9th.
December 9. Yeah, December 9, Andy's on. He's fighting, it's his first fight in Australia in over 2 years. And he takes on Filipino, I'm not sure the pronunciation, Julian Saladar. Over 10 rounds. The show will be televised live on Fox Sports, which is awesome for Andrew. So that's so good for him to be back fighting in Australia, so he can sort of relaunch the next title campaign. So I'm sure he's looking for a good win there, and yeah, obviously he's still a big name in the mix of that division, and hopefully gets another title shot soon.
Well, Pete, tell us a little bit about his opponent. I'm sure Andy will tell us a lot more about it in a second, but you know a little bit about him. You've got a bit of history.
Yeah, he comes from a fighting family. His brother Vic was an Olympian and a flyweight, and his brother's actually a world champion. I'm pretty sure he's a minimum world champion because he was recently anyway. I don't know if he still is. But Froland has fought for a world title as well. He used to fight in a camouflage army type of shorts. He's no frills. He's sort of like a workman-like. He punches hard. He's very, very balanced type of fighter. There's nothing that he does that's outstanding, but you can't sleep on him. He's one of these guys. He's very tough. He can punch. He's tenacious, and he's a typical, fighter from the Philippines. They all come to fight, and they're all got a bit of power, and you've got to give them respect. Otherwise, they will cause an upset. Simple as that.
Yeah, well, I think if anyone's earned just a good, tough fight, is Andy. He's done it tough for the last couple of years. Well, speaking of the Munster, Andy Moloney, we're really lucky to have him on tonight, and he's been good enough to join us from the northern beaches of New South Wales, I think it is. So welcome, Andy. Welcome back to Boxing Deep Dive.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
So, mate, you've obviously had you on a few weeks ago. You just got back from America then. But, mate, we're just talking about how exciting it is for No Limit what they're doing in Australian boxing, and now to have you headlining one of the shows. It must be pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's right. I'm absolutely rapt to be fighting in Australia again for the first time in over 2 years. So just really, really happy that I'm getting the opportunity to finish off the year with a big win and to fight in front of my fans here in Australia, and also the great exposure of being live on Fox Sports. So, yeah, huge thank you to No Limit and Top Rank also, my promoter and my management team in Tony Tolles for all getting together to make this happen, because I really thought that it was going to look like I was going to not fight again for the rest of the year a few weeks back, and thankfully they've all worked very hard and made this possible. So I'm really excited to have the opportunity to finish off the year with a really good win and to push me forward towards this next crack at a world title.
Well, before I let Tazzy ask a question, I just want to say, have you had a go at Ben Damon? He broke the news about a week ago before the press conference, and we were speaking about it last week, and then they have the official announcement a couple of days ago.
Yeah, it always seems to happen, but that's all
There was
right.
nothing on
Everyone,
there was nothing on your social media or no limits or main events. It was nowhere except for Ben's page.
yeah, that's right. I thought I better wait for the
Yeah.
official announcement, but yeah, the news always seems to get out before that happens, but that's all right. Just hopefully, a lot of people can get there to Newcastle, and hopefully a lot of people will tune in on TV and watch what's going to be a great show. Not just my fight, but the undercard looks to be shaping up really well as well.
Good stuff. Go ahead, Tazzy.
Hey, Andy, how are you, brother?
Yeah, good, Taz. How are you?
Good, thanks, mate. Very good. So will you stay in New South Wales now and see out your rest of your camp there before the fight, or?
Yeah, I will. There's only 4 weeks to go now, so luckily, I've been in the gym constantly since getting back to Australia and been training really hard, just trying to improve as a fighter. So I've had a few weeks now where I've known this fight was going to happen and have really knuckled down and pushed hard. And now I've organised some really good sparring here for the next couple of weeks, and we'll finish camp here in Kingscliff and then head to Sydney or Newcastle on fight week.
Awesome, mate. And obviously, you know much about your opponent. Have you sort of seen him, much of him beforehand? Was he on your radar at all before the fight was mentioned?
Yeah, I've watched quite a bit of him since getting told he was going to be my opponent. But I already knew his name. I'd seen some of his fights already in the past. He's fought against some really good opposition. I remember watching his fight against he fought Inoue's brother, and had a really good fight with him. Actually dropped Inoue's brother in the first round, and then went to lose on points over 10. And that was the first time I sort of took note of him. And then seen him also in other fights against really good opposition like Williams Arroyo. He's fought sort of 2 or 3 guys. All his losses, although he's had 4, they've all been against either world champions or sort of top 5 guys. So he's someone that, I can't underestimate. I'm going to have to beat my very best, and I'm expecting a tough fight.
That's awesome, mate. I'm so happy for you got the opportunity, mate, and he put you right back in the world title mix as soon as you get a good victory on in December.
Yeah, that's right, and that's what I wanted. We could have chose an easy fight where I go out there and just get a win and be great for my confidence. But to me, there's no point in doing that. I don't want to waste time and going through months of training just to have a fight I know I'm going to win that's not going to progress me forward in my career. So I believe a win over Saluda should put me up high in the rankings. I'm number 12 in the WBO at the moment, which is really the route I want to go down. And this fight will be for a WBO regional title. So hopefully a win over Saluda, who is a former WBO world title challenger. Hopefully a win over him pushes me somewhere sort of towards top 5. And then hopefully in 2022, I'll get the opportunity to fight again for a world title.
Awesome, brother.
Andrew, I was going to say you're definitely beating Jason in the Movember thing. I saw Jason's Mo. It wasn't nowhere near as big and thick as yours. I don't know how you're twins. You haven't got any Italian heritage that we don't know of, do you? So
Just need a little handlebars going.
I tell you what, it looks shocking. I'm glad you got to wear a face mask when you're out in public because this is pretty embarrassing.
Can I say something, Andrew? When you popped up, I thought it was from a 1980s porn star.
I can't take myself serious looking at this photo, this image of me.
No, mate, I was going to say you mentioned a WBO, Kazuki Ioka. Is that the guy you're looking at? Because he's a guy that's been around. He's a 3-division world champion. I know Ioka well. And I thought Tanaka was going to beat him. Remember they had that fight on New Year's Eve with Tanaka and Ioka, and he TKO'd Tanaka and dropped him a few times. And Tanaka was someone that I know their team, and actually a kid that, Randy Petalcorin was a sparring partner. He went over there for Tanaka for a bit there. That's a guy that you want to fight eventually, someone like Kazuki Ioka. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the path we're trying to go down, and that's who I've sort of picked out as to who I want to fight. And he's an unbelievable fighter, 3-weight world champion, and pound for pound on some people's top 10 list in the whole world of boxing. So an exceptional fighter, but someone that I believe I can beat, and I believe his style suits me. And so that's the path we're going to go down, and hopefully I get my opportunity to fight him at some stage next year.
You've got Tszyu and Hunter Huss as well. Tszyu and Hunter Huss is the IBF world champion. You've got Estrada. I mean, that division now, it's starting to get pretty stacked, isn't it? There's a lot of good fighters in that division. And going to with your opponent, Froland Salador, I mean, he comes from a fighting family. His brother Vic was an Olympian. His brother Vic's fought for a world title. I think his brother might have even won a world title, his minimum weight. But Froland's no walk in the park. It's good that you picked him. I know he's with Sandman, JC Mananquil, and the same people have got. We all promote Randy Pittlecorum, so I know him pretty well. So you've done really well, mate. I'll take my hat off. You could have taken an easier fight. He's not a walk in the park. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah, that's right. They're a real good fighting family. You're right. His brother is still world champion. I think he fights around the same time as I fight his brother, and they've also got another brother who I believe is on the Philippines national team. So yeah,
he's good.
Very, very good.
Yeah, excellent. His other brother's still an amateur though, by memory. He hasn't turned pro yet, but he's outstanding. It's a fighting family.
Yeah, that's right.
So I was just going to say, mate, is there a bit of a roadmap being put? I know you're talking about fighters that you'd like to fight down the track and we'd like to go. Is there a bit of a roadmap put together in conjunction with Top Rank for 2022, or is it just a bit of get past this one and then we'll see what happens?
Yeah, well, the plan is to get a win on the board here in this fight and to put myself in the position for some big fights as soon as we can get back over, most likely probably to America early next year. So hopefully, fingers crossed, everything goes to plan. Big win here, hopefully somewhere around the top 5. And then we just look to try and get back to world title contention as soon as possible. So whether that's another fight or two before that happens, then we'll just try and fight people who are highly rated in the WBO to keep pushing me up the rankings.
Go ahead, Tazzy.
Yeah, and No Limits obviously been great to work with. I mean, they've really come out of the last couple of years, with Tszyu and Gallen, and how are they been to work along with, Andrew?
Yeah, they really do things really, really well here, and I've been to a lot of their shows. Stablemate of mine, Bruno Trimo's fought on quite a few of their shows now, and I've been there live, probably a handful of times, and they put on a really, really good event. So I'm just really looking forward to being a part of that and getting the chance to showcase my talent here in Australia for the first time in a very long time.
Yeah, mate. As soon as I seen him, I called Lynden and told him he couldn't find the news anywhere. I forgot where I seen it. And he goes, really? And he looked up everywhere, didn't you? And I was the first person to tell Lynden. I said, this is awesome.
I've got to take notice of Ben Damon a bit more. I think I've got to follow him on Twitter or wherever, Instagram, wherever he is these days. I've got to keep in the loop.
Well, Sam Goodman's opponent will be mentioning pretty soon. I know who that is as well. And he's with JC Mananquil as well and Sam Manjim. And it's pretty big news. Sam Goodman's going to step up. It's a massive opponent. And you'll hear that he's fighting in December as well. I don't want to announce it here, but it's definitely another Filipino guy. And
is he on one of those cards? Is he on the 9th or 10th?
I think he's on Andy's card. He's on the undercard, isn't he?
He's on the night after me. He's on the 10th.
Okay, well, he's fighting a real credentialed Filipino as well. So we'll wait for that to be announced. I'm not like Ben Damon, Lynden. I'm a little.
You and Ben working in conjunction. Hey, Andy, I was just going to ask you. We can't sort of let you go without asking about the other brother. What's he up to? Jason.
He's training away. He did really want to fight again this year, but they're working on a really big fight for him early next year. So unfortunately, that takes a bit of time to put together, and he has to wait for that. So he'll be on the sidelines until early next year. But keep your ears peeled because there's going to be a big announcement for a big fight for him.
Yeah, can't wait for that. Well, Well, I'm not going to let you go without sort of being a little bit more active in the show. If you don't mind hanging around, we're going to go through the rest of the Aussie news, and we'd love to get your feedback on what your thoughts are with Eric. Speaking of that other guy that's on the weekend with you, Mr. Gallen, how's he been to work alongside?
Yeah, well, I've sort of been around Gal a little bit over the last few years when he fought on his show, when he fought Barry Hall. And yeah, I mean, I respect Gal, the way that he's gone about his boxing career and taking on, some really tough tests and trains extremely hard from what I've heard. So I've got full credit to what he's doing. And this fight's quite interesting because there's a lot of rumours around his opponent. He's apparently got a fair bit of boxing experience and apparently can box really well, but we're going to have to wait and see until the night if that's true or not. He's a very big boy, quite a bit bigger than Gal, so it's going to be an exciting fight to watch.
For us that know nothing about NRL or what's it called, who is he actually a big name up there? I mean, I'm not being smart about it.
I've never heard of him.
No, but is he a
He's
name up
played
there?
120 games. He's played 120 games. He's played over 100 games. He's a
In
decent
what?
player. He's a senior player.
In rugby?
In rugby, in his first grade games, and he trained with Huss in Sydney, who's got a good gym. Huss is, and I think Justin Kennedy's involved there as well. And he's had 2 or 3 amateur fights. By all reports, he spars pretty well.
Oh, wow, look out. He sounds amazing. Looking forward to it.
Now, come on, Tazzy.
Come on, Tazzy.
Did
Say
you
that
give
for
any
the
chance,
quiz,
Andy? Or
please.
did you give
He's
him any
already-
chance? Sorry?
No,
Hey, Andrew, I know I'm your favourite person out of the quiz. I know that you team Tazzy all day, every day.
I'm going to go back to back tonight, Andrew. I'm going to break a few.
Sometimes I
hearts.
give Pete that much of a spanking, he thinks I'm his daddy.
Andy, a bit more serious here, mate. Do you give this guy a chance to actually beat Gal, or is it just another stepping stone for another pay-per-view event?
Oh, that's the thing. Like, we really don't know. I mean, I've just heard rumours that he can box really well and has done quite a lot of sparring and had a few amateur fights. But there's a big difference between a couple of amateur fights years and years ago and, sparring with probably other football players to fighting someone like Gal, who's a pretty experienced boxer these days. So we're going to have to wait and see on the night. But if I was to have a bet, I would say Gal was going to get the job done.
And Tazzy, we were quite thankful, weren't we? We talked about the fights last week, and we're actually really thankful that your fight's actually on Fox Sports for free, and we don't have to pay for it, where Gallen is obviously your main event. I can't believe it's actually not the other way around. I understand the way it works. We had this debate last week, but at least we don't have to worry about forking out for Andy's fight, Tazzy.
Yeah, 100%. Look, as I said, we all know the politics of boxing and the media and all that, and Andrew, fuck, I'd pay $200 to watch Andrew fight any day, mate. But I mean, it is what it is, mate. Only the diehards really, pay for the full boxing, and the average person likes the show, like the entertainment, whether it's a footballer or a bloody tennis player or a TikToker. I don't know if you know much about TikTokers, Andrew. There's a few TikTokers around. And a few OnlyFans. I'm thinking about doing an OnlyFans page soon, actually. Get a few more likes on Instagram. A few more fucking followers, mate.
What about you, Pete? How do you see it all? I mean, I know we've had this discussion last week, but the Gallen fight, as much as
are we talking boxing or TikTok?
No, we're talking boxing.
OnlyFans, Peter.
OnlyFans, yeah. Yeah, no, it's a bit exclusive. No, I was going to ask Andrew about, is Lenny Zappavinia on your card as well? Or is he on the night before?
That was leaked also by Ben Damon, so it wasn't me breaking the news. Yeah, he is.
He doesn't know the opponent. He doesn't know the opponent, does he?
I saw his name, but I can't remember who it was, to be honest. But I've seen the undercard to the fight night that I'm headlining, and it's going to be really, really good. And then obviously you've seen some of the undercard fights that are going to be on the Gallen night. So it's going to be a really good weekend of boxing. I'm sure there'll be people that will make the trip to Newcastle and stay for both nights. And there's going to be some really good fights, whether you're into the rugby stuff or not. I think there's some really good Australian talent on the cards.
Yeah.
What about Harry Garside? Is he on the Gallen one?
No, Garside's fighting a 9-1 Medilia. He's fighting that Fijian. It's 9-1. And Lenny Zapovina's fighting, I can reveal now because I know I did the deal for them, J.R. Inson, who defeated Terry Zeramanis on a Manny Pacquiao-Lucas Matisse card. He's with MP Promotions. And he's trained by Nonoy Nuri, who's a big right-hand man of Team Pacquiao. And
Harry's fighting him first up.
No, Harry's fighting a Fijian.
Sorry, Lenny's fighting him. Sorry.
Lenny Zapovina's fighting the J.R. Inson, who they call him the Hitman. He was formerly world rate. He's fought in America under Manny's
He was a Hitman?
No, his nickname's a Hitman.
Oh.
And he he's a pretty good fighter, and he defeated Terry Zeramanis in Kuala Lumpur on the Lucas.
Can I just ask a question? I don't know if I'm out of the loop. Is Problemo anything to do with this show, or they nothing to do with this?
Problemo.
No,
Problem, Tazzy.
Oh, sorry.
Problem. All right. Well, there's obviously that's just going to be a massive weekend. Speaking of No Limit, there's obviously the biggest event that No Limit have put on is this coming Wednesday, and that's the Tszyu and Inoue fight, Andy, and that's another feather in the cap of No Limit.
Yeah, that's right. Going to be interesting. I've seen a few highlights of Inoue, but haven't really seen a full fight of his. He looks very strong, built like a bodybuilder. But I don't know if he will give Tim too much problems.
I tell you now, mate, he must be having some good Japanese steak over there.
Yeah, that's right. But they look like beach muscles to me. I don't know if he's going to be that powerful or cause Tim any problems. He looks like he's been spending too much time in the weight room, and I don't know if that's going to help him in a boxing fight.
Is he just hamming it up here with what he's doing on the bags? Because, I mean, it looked quite comical, didn't it? He's not. He's just swinging his arms. Was it just to make us think he can't fight, or what's going on?
I believe so, and I hope so. Because, it certainly didn't look too good. But I believe
he did give Mayunga a good fight. So he obviously... Jamie Mayunga's a good fighter. So he actually, obviously... He can fight, obviously.
Yeah, I haven't seen the fight, but I heard that he obviously went the distance, I believe, and gave him a sort of a toughish sort of fight. I just don't think that his style will cause Tim too much problems, but we'll have to wait and see. Maybe he is going to be really strong and relentless coming forward, and maybe that's the style to beat him.
Pete, how did Kamakayo get his head on there? He always tends to get in somewhere, doesn't he, Kamakayo?
He does. He's everywhere. I think because he's been sparring Tim Tszyu, and I think the cameras are asking him about Uni, and I think he went and trained with Inoue as well. At Bondi. So
he'll be on a bloody on a bus next in Melbourne, no doubt. You'll see his face on a bus.
Yeah, he's everywhere, Joel, isn't he?
Hey Andy, just on another subject with Tim, you would have seen this week that it was sort of brought up that he reckons or he thinks that he could be a potential match-up for Canelo. I mean, a lot of people laugh, but it's probably not as silly as it seems, is it?
I did see that. Look, obviously, things like this are going to come up, and I mean, who knows? It possibly could be something that could happen, because of Tim's name, obviously, and if it makes money, it makes sense. So it could possibly happen in years to come if Tim was to move up in weight, and Canelo could probably move down to middleweight at least. But I do think that's far too early for Tim at this stage. Too big of a jump in the caliber of opponents that he's fought as of yet. But a few more fights, if Tim can win a world title, then who knows? It might be possible.
Well, Pete, one good thing is being a promoter. I mean, they've done a really good job of actually just putting it out there because it's got all of us talking about it, hasn't it? I saw Jeff Fennick was commenting on it as well. So, it gets it out there and gets people talking about Tim and the event. But look, I think Canelo's got to be way too big and obviously experienced for Tim at this stage. But as I said, we're all talking about it, aren't we?
Yeah, it's good to aim high. I mean, you can always aim high, and it's good that he looks at himself as a possible opponent. I mean, if you had to say out of the guys that Tim could fight that's there now that would suit him, it would probably be someone like Triple G.
Yeah.
Because he is at middleweight. They could possibly do the fight, but he's still miles away from being at that level because he's going through the grades. He's had 20 pro fights. And to fight those guys, it's a massive step up. So he's probably about 2 years away from fighting the real big names and probably another 6 or 7 fights. But he's got the Tszyu name, he's got the pedigree, he's got the genetics. It's not like a distant idea where you think he's dreaming. So, there is a chance that it could happen. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Well, Tazzy, that's the thing, isn't it? A lot of people would have scoffed at it straight away. But, I mean, as I thought about it, I thought, well, if you're going to be in it, you may as well be in it and try and aim for the best.
Andrew would know this. If you're a fighter, you got to believe you can beat anyone. If anyone, it was like when you boys went over and watched the that tournament. I think it was the flyweights or the super flyweight tournament. You see them and they're only human. They're real people. I guess when you're an actual fighter, you don't put people on a pedestal. Like, anyone's beatable. And if you're a division or two close to someone, you shouldn't be boxing if you think anyone can beat you. You got to have that invincibility in your head. So I don't blame Tim at all for thinking that he can one day beat him. And I'm sure that he thinks he can beat anyone. And that's just, I'm sure Andrew agrees. Like, you got to have that mindset.
Yeah, that's right. And you also, you train your ass off every single day and dedicate your life to this sport. You want to test yourself and find out how good you can possibly be. Anyone in my division, even now coming off a loss, I'll fight the Chocolatitos, Estrada, Ioka, anyone, I'd fight them this week. Because you got to back yourself and test yourself to see how good you can really be.
Well, that's the thing. Pete, I was going to say, all great fighters have that mindset, don't they? All the best fighters.
Well, Jason went over and fought Inoue. Inoue's pound for pound, top 2, top 3. I mean, Jason went over and he wasn't there for frills. He was there to win the fight. You know what I mean? So that's the thing.
Yeah, well, that's right, isn't it, Pete? I mean, you can't go over and go, I'll just go over and geez, how good's this to be on the big stage? You've got to have the mindset that you can beat these guys, don't you?
You do. That's what I was just about to say. And I know Andrew does his homework because you know who you want to fight and who suits you, styles-wise, and you keep a marker because you'd probably know most of the super flyweights in the top 10 of most divisions because that's your division and that's the area where you look at. How do you rate that Thai that knocked out Chocolito?
Rungvisai?
Yeah.
He can be very good. He's extremely strong and obviously powerful. And he can be good and he can be ordinary. For some reason, when he fought Estrada in their rematch, he decided to box orthodox for the whole fight and got his ears boxed off and boxed southpaw for about a minute and dominated, but then went back to orthodox. So he's doesn't have the best boxing brain and can do very silly things. Extremely strong, but can be outboxed. And again, a fighter that I'd more than happily fight next week or whenever we can make it happen.
How do you rate Julian Huss, the IBF super flyweight world champion? He's made about 7 successful defences, I think.
Yeah, I believe he's the longest reigning super flyweight champ at the moment. And a very good fighter, a tall southpaw, which is always tricky. And there is rumours that he might be fighting Ioka in Japan towards the end of the year in a unification fight. So that'd be a great fight. So if we go down the WBO route, and Huss might be who we end up fighting. So, again, another fight that I'd love. And as I said, I'm happily fight anyone in the super flyweight division.
All right, well, let's move on to the next bit of news, and that is the head splitter has a opponent, Pete.
He has. Adam Stowe.
And you knew this last week, didn't you? But you wouldn't spill the beans.
I wouldn't spill the beans. I know his purse as well, which I shouldn't say.
Hey, Pete knows everything, mate. I think he knows what I had for breakfast this morning as well.
No, I don't know that, Tazzy, but I know you and I will be going head-to-head in a quiz very soon. And that microphone better be working. Lynden doesn't want to know any more of that microphone not working.
Andrew, I'm not sure if you know this because he's pretty private, Peter, but every time he wins a quiz, he goes straight to King Street, mate, the showgirls.
No, but getting back to Adam Stowe. I mean, Adam Stowe runs marathons. We've seen him fight. I think he fought a few times on Andrew's undercards at Tweed Heads. So I've seen him. He's a tough guy, no nonsense. This is a massive step up for Stowe, though, to be fighting hard. And, I think Stowe's had under 10 pro fights, but he's as tough as nails. He's actually sparred Joel Camilleri and done well in sparring. Real good, tough guy. But the fact that you can't get fighters into Queensland from anywhere else without quarantining makes it very hard. So this is a local good activity fight where Hardman makes the wages, Stowe makes the wages. It's activity. And, Stowe's going to give him rounds. I don't think Stowe's got any chance of winning the fight, let's be honest. Does anyone give Stowe any chance of winning the fight? No, but I think he can go rounds. I think he's tough enough.
Got to give him credit, though, for taking it.
Yeah, and I think he's tough enough to go rounds. And if he can take Hardman a distance, I think that's going to be a massive win for Stowe.
Andy, what are your thoughts on Hardman? He's been pretty active. Do you see? And there's obviously been, the Zarafa fight's been discussed as well. Do you see him actually being at the level and giving Zarafa a good fight? How do you see it going?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I really do want to see the Zarafa fight because I believe it's a very exciting fight, but also I think that'll show where Hardman's at because he does seem like he could possibly be outboxed by someone like Zarafa, but he's also got very heavy hands and, he could possibly knock Zarafa out. So it's an really exciting fight that I hope comes together. I haven't seen enough of Hardman yet to make a call whether he can go to that next step and make it onto the world level. But he's certainly got world level power, so that's a big tick on his box. But I think he's still learning as a boxer and probably improving as a fighter each fight because he's coming obviously from MMA, two very different sports. And what's he had now? 10 boxing
10 or
fights
11,
or there.
Yeah, something like that,
So he's still learning. He's still very raw, and but with those heavy hands, if he can continue to improve each fight, he could go a long way.
Definitely talks it up, doesn't he, Tazzy?
Yeah, look, he's great for boxing. I mean, we spoke about him before. He's coming over as the B side. He's knocking these guys out like Matt Sheehan and a few other guys. He would just come out of nowhere and he just started knocking blokes out, and then he become the A side, and now he's he's colourful. He talks it and he backs it up, and that was a good win against Emmanuel Carlos. That was a really good win because Carlos probably was the better boxer, the more experienced, fluent fighter, but he just chinned him and just put it on him. So look, mate, he's great, and that's a good fight. Him and Zarafa, it's probably the best local matchup. Both Aussies that's out there at the moment. So I hope it goes ahead, and the winner moves on, and the loser is a bit of bragging rights, I guess, with that fight, 100%.
I just can't wait for the build up to that one. But let's move on to the rest of the Tasman card. There's a couple of fights I want to just go over here that's just been released this week. They're really, really good fights, Andy. This Coolwell and is it Zalewski, I'll say. That's a really good fight.
Yeah.
And the rematch, Hunt versus Kite, just great matchups.
Rematch.
Yeah. Coolwell versus Zalewski is a great fight. I've sparred Dana before. Dana's a really good talent. Don't know if you guys saw his fight against Jack Wiley the other week. Very close fight and a tough fight. And I'm actually quite surprised that they've thrown him in here straight away for another very tough fight because Miles is a very good fighter. I've seen him spar a lot in our gym with Bruno and also does some rounds with Jason. And a very good fighter and very heavy-handed too at that weight. So a very tough fight for Dana to come straight into off the back of a loss. But a fight that could really go either way. And yeah, one I'm really looking forward to watching.
What about the Hunt versus Kite rematch? The first one was very entertaining.
It was. I was actually surprised that they're having a rematch, and good on Kite for wanting that, because it was quite a tough fight for him. He was hurt on a few occasions during that first fight, but managed to sort of weather the storm and get through it. But for me, probably didn't look like he was going to win that fight at any stage. So I'd probably expect Hunt to win this one again.
Yeah, I agree. What do you reckon, Pete? Just another couple of great matchups on another couple of great weekends of boxing.
Yeah, look, I'll take my hat off to Coolwell because he's coming off a real tough loss, and it's his first loss to go straight into Zawelski. I mean, that is absolutely straight back into the fire. And, I heard him speaking before the fight saying he watches Lionel Rose documentaries, and he's got some real good skills. So if he can get past Zawelski, I mean, he's going to end up being a real top-class fighter. As for Hunt's got a lot of power. I know he was in the Jeff Horn stable. I know he used to spar a lot with Jeff Horn. He sparred with the good fighters, and he had a good team behind him. I mean, he's going places. He's very hard to beat. Ben Kite's just the pure blue-collar type of fighter. I mean, he's never going to win a world title. Tough as nails. You'd back him in against most, and he's going to be there for 10 hard rounds. So this is going to be a real interesting contest, and it's good that they took the fight. I mean, it's great for Australian boxing that we're getting these type of fights on.
Yeah, and there'll obviously be more matchups announced in the next sort of couple of weeks. But Tazzy, just one last thing, and we haven't got a lot of information about it, but this was broken by Ace Boxing. Is that Dempsey McKean over in the States at the moment, and a big announcement is imminent.
Yeah, mate, he's with Matchroom, and he's on a Matchroom card, I believe. He's been getting some great sparring with Anthony Joshua, Dylan White, any big name heavyweight in England, he's been sparring him. So, look, well done to Ezra Carlo, Ace Boxing, and they're a great team. Also, Liam Paro has been sparring Shakur Stevenson, and he's going to announce a fight soon. So they're both Andrew's fighters.
I know Paro's fight. He's going to be fighting. He's going to be fighting on a big card. Jake Paul and Tyson Fury's brother is on that. Wow. He's on that undercard.
Wow.
So
credit to Andrew Carlo, mate. He puts money into his fighters. He brings them along, and now they're both over there living the dream. Really, that's just great. Congratulations to all them guys and the team.
Andy, how is it over there at the moment? Sorry.
Lynden, I've just got to say this. Andrew knows I've been doing mind games in a Tazzy already. I'm already thinking about the quiz, Andrew. And I know that Tazzy said you're with Team Tazzy, but quietly I think you like my tenacity. You could be crossing over. I could be winning you over.
Andrew's very loyal to me, mate. I've called him naughty many nights out in Tasmania, many training camps, many dinners. I'll drive him around, bring a chauffeur. I'll be very surprised if Andrew jumps ship.
Andy, before we let you go, it just must be it's just great for Australian boxing, isn't it? That obviously yourself and Jace have been over there, and sure Tim Zell will get there at some stage. Obviously George Cambosis, and to see Dempsey McKean and Liam Paro now being part of it. I mean, it's just really going to open up the doors for Aussie boxing over there, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just great when any Aussie can get on a big show like this, and you're just constantly seeing more and more Aussies fighting over on the big stage, and that's what we need to help grow the sport in Australia, and to inspire also the next generation to see that it is possible. And you see these fighters that are fighting on the big shows, and then it just gives you more motivation to keep pushing, because sometimes when you're in Australia, those big fights over in America just seem so far away, and almost impossible to reach. So the more and more Aussies we can get on these big cards, the better to help grow this sport.
And well said, mate. And just one more thing, sorry, is how is it when you're actually over there on those events? Well, I mean, we watch from back home. I know it's hard with the no crowd situation, but what is it like to actually fight on a big top ranked card compared to here? I should say.
Um, I don't know. It's a tough one to explain. Really, it does sort of feel a bit surreal at moments. It's a little moments like that, with like the ring announcer and things like that, and just like the commentary team that are around you when you got guys sitting next to you like Tim Bradley, Andre Ward, Joe Tessitore, and just hearing their voices. It's what you're used to hearing on TV, and it does sort of feel a bit surreal. But when you're actually warming up and in the ring and things like that, you're just so much in the zone that you're not really thinking about how big the occasion is at the time. I suppose it's sort of not until after the fight and, weeks after when you're thinking back on it and you realise just how big it really was.
That's awesome, mate. Well, that's great, mate. We look forward to December. Now, get this right. December the 9th is when you're on. So if you're watching us, it's going to be live on Fox Sports, free of charge, which is even better. And, mate, we wish you all the best. We're rapt to have you back in Australia after 2 years. And along with Jason, we really look forward to seeing what's going to happen in the near future.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it. And, yeah, everyone tune in. And I'm sure it's going to be a great night and hope to put on a great performance for you all.
Good stuff, mate.
All the best, Andrew. Make sure you watch the quiz and support me.
Yeah, well done.
I will.
Thanks, Andy. Talk to you next time, mate.
See you,
Thanks
mate.
for having us on. Cheers.
All right, that is the Munster and Andy Moloney. So, great to get his insight into the card. But it's just a great, I said before, it's been a really tough 18 months. And now to have these two great shows, I mean, it's fantastic.
It is. What a way to move into Christmas.
It is.
Something you guys should do next year. You two together should do a double header Friday, Saturday night.
Hard enough doing one show, mate.
In conjunction with Tazzy Brown, maybe we'll do a double header.
Yeah, well, we might talk about that next year. I think get through this year. All right, well, that's the Aussie news. Pete, there's not a hell of a lot going on except for obviously one massive event which happened last weekend. Fill us in on the big one.
Yeah, we saw Canelo Alvarez, and how more impressive could he have been? I mean, Caleb Plant, an undefeated fighter, someone that really worked hard early in the fight, won some early rounds, made it difficult, but Canelo just neutralised him, got data in, worked him, and finished him like he does everyone. He's just a beast now. I mean, does he go down now as equal as Chavez? Is this guy can end up being the best Mexican fighter that's ever lived? I say yes. I think he's going to end up being the best Mexican fighter we've ever seen. And the guy's a beast. He's got gears. He's got brilliant skills. 4 division world champion. So, I mean, he's proven everything. And he takes on the best. He's active. He's old school. He's only 31 years of age. So he's got 2 or 3 good years left in him as well. There's not much. You'd have to be a real harsh judge to say anything negative against Canelo Alvarez. And his only loss was to Mayweather, and he learnt from that. He was a young pup back then, and he still took the fight. So everything about him just breeds that old Mexican old school fighter. And yeah, great person to have in boxing right at the moment. He's a new star. He's taken over from Pacquiao and Mayweather. So, I don't know who can beat him. I don't see anyone that can beat him.
How'd you see it, Tazzy? Did you think Plant actually performed well, or you reckon just Canelo just took his time and did what he had to do?
Mate, look, you got to give credit to. I mean, look, the thing about I told someone today, Canelo, recent fights besides that, that other guy, but the win over Callum Smith, undefeated, lineal super middleweight champion, took him in the deep end and flogged him. Billy Joe Saunders, who I really respect and rate, very good boxer, could have made things difficult. 2 division champion, undefeated. Canelo breaks him down and flogs him. Now with this guy, very good boxer, Plant, undefeated, big guy. He was a good amateur, well schooled. Canelo takes his time and just takes him in the deep end and drowns him. Like, he's so composed, he can lose 1 or 2 rounds and he doesn't get flustered. He has the game plan. He's a 12-round fighter, which means he'll just put the pressure on you and just break you down slowly. And mate, we're witnessing something special. He's unbelievable. Like Pete said, mate, if he's not won already, I think he will outdo Chavez if he hasn't already.
Yeah.
And he could even break the top 10 of all time in all rankings. We don't know how far he's going to go. Does he go up to light heavyweight to fight Benavides? I hope not, but he probably could. Does he beat Charlo? I think he does. Or does he beat the other Mexican boy? Whatever that big Mexican boy.
Benavides.
Yeah,
Benavides.
beats him. Does he Triple G in a trilogy? Like, I just don't. He's 31. And the thing about it, guys, you agree, there's nothing like being active in this game. Inactivity kills fighters. Canelo fights regularly. Now, when do you see someone like him fight as often at his level?
Yeah.
He fought like 4 times in the last year or so. He's unbelievable, mate. Unbelievable.
Yeah. No, he is. And that's the thing, isn't it, Pete? Like, he doesn't throw a lot of punches per round, but he just makes every punch count, doesn't he? He just walks them down. He puts that perceived pressure on them, makes them do all the work, and just breaks them down bit by bit.
Yeah, smart punches too. Punches around the guard. He knows what he's doing. He just throws his punches a bit difficult sometimes when they've got a high guard. He works them like a book, and eventually he gets them where he wants them, and he finishes them. He's methodical. He knows exactly what he's doing. His defense is exceptional. His head movement's really, really good. And look, there's no one out there that can beat him at the moment, in my opinion. I mean, Charlo would need an axe to beat him. Impossible. He's gone past Triple G. Triple G's now waning and inactive and not doing what he's doing that he was before. I know they had close fights before. I couldn't see Triple G beating Canelo Alvarez now.
Well, we've got a little bit of a Canelo theme for your slip and weave questions and the talking point tonight as well, where we actually discuss a few of those points that you made. But can he get better, or do you think this is him at his peak right now?
I think he's peaking right now, but I mean, we mentioned Benavides. Benavides' a beast. His trainer, Mark Ramsey's actually a great guy. They're based in Canada. And that's sort of fight that Canelo should take, because Benavides really high risk and a real powerful light heavyweight for not much reward. I mean, you don't need that. But Canelo's the type of guy that would take Benavides and fight him. I think he's just that type of guy, because that poses the biggest risk. And that's why he's such a great fighter. He doesn't look for the easy fights. He looks for the toughest fights. And that's what the great fighters do. And if you've got that mentality that I'm going to go and beat up the toughest guy in the schoolyard every single day at school, not many people are going to be picking on you, I'll tell you that now. So Canelo is a beast. He is the current number one guy in boxing. I know Crawford's pretty good as well, and Crawford's the hardest to beat. But Canelo moves up divisions. Crawford's moved up divisions as well. But I see Canelo as the number one guy, and Crawford, then I don't see anyone get even close to those two at the moment.
Tazzy, just on that with the pound for pound thing, surely no one could compare Crawford to Canelo, could they? I mean, Crawford's obviously very, very talented, and a lot of people have him at number 2, but it's got to be daylight between Canelo and number 2, doesn't it, based on his achievements?
It is now. There might have been a year ago, maybe a conversation, and I rate Crawford highly.
Well, he hasn't been active either, has he?
Not now. Canelo's had a ridiculously active year. He's beaten 3 undefeated world champions and took their belts off him. And he's just amazing, mate. Like, yeah, look, there's daylights between Canelo. Then it's up to you if you've got Inoue or Usyk,
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to actually just play a little bit before we move on to the next one, and this is it's a little bit comical. It's the actual weigh-in. Now, this is a little bit of sort of a mini tirade / laughing point, to be honest, because this is the traditional weigh-in. Look at it, you can see the 2 boxers there having a bit of a talk. Look at everyone at the back. It always makes me laugh. They're all lost to get in there. They all know where the cameras are and where the fighters are, and you can see them pop with their head in there. And am I on camera? Am I not on camera? And can I be seen in the right spot? Even Iron Mike at the back's there trying to get his way in. Look at this poor bloke at the front here saying, look at the camera. He said it about 10 times and neither one of them will listen to him. It's just got to the comical stage, hasn't it, Pete?
Yeah, look, it's a circus, but that's what gets the pay-per-views. That's what it is. It becomes a circus, and that's why we love boxing. There's so many egos, there's so many big personalities, and but there is respect there. No one's trying to butt him. Mike's even telling him to have a look now. Mike's wiping his brow. I mean, how does Mike get up there? I don't understand it. He's not part of the team. He's got it. Now he's trying to move Brown. I think that's Brown, the promoter, was Tuta Goosen that does a lot of the work. I mean, he's getting shoved around. That bloke in the front's got front and centre.
You can see the bloke, he's pointing to them both saying, look at the camera, look at the camera. Neither one of them looked at the camera once. But, Tazzy, I mean, we laugh about it, but come on. This doesn't have to be a point. I know it looks good for the cameras and everything else, but you can see them all looking to see they're on TV and, geez, look at me. And it almost looks like a WWE, all-man in thing at the back to see who can get their head on TV. But surely at some stage, the combat board or the promoter's got to say, hey, guys, let's just back it off and let's have the actual people that matter up there.
Well, mate, I don't know, mate. I mean, look how many people jumped in the ring at times after Tyson fights, or look at the Bo Gallotta thing with Bo's security team. I mean, there's been some crazy things in boxing, and I don't know how half the people are even in the ring or get accreditation passes to, some people. But look, Tyson deserves to be anywhere. Tyson can beat any Wayne, or he's and Al Heyman would have organised that with Sam Watson, who was there as well. So obviously Tyson was like a special guest, and it was a good idea, I guess. But I mean, like Top Rank bring Roberto Duran out when they and things like that.
It's good. I think it's great, but it's just the circus of all these no names at the back.
No names, yeah. Well,
who will do 100%. Anything to have some sort of relevance to the event, and they somehow find the ways up there or after the fight or whatever. And you can see, and it's, as I said, it's literally like WWE all in brawl at the back just to get their head on TV.
Yeah, well, don't bag WWE just because Mike's in hospital. Mike's not well at the moment. God bless him. Because Mike loves his WWE, but let's hope he gets well soon. I love you, brother.
Yeah, we love you, Mike. But I was just
get well
it.
soon, Mike. We need you back, and we need you back on.
And Tony Tolge is a big WWE fan as well.
We all love WWE, but it's just, Peter, it almost got to the point where I wasn't watching Canelo and playing. I was watching all the circus behind him. I mean, it's a laugh, but I don't know. It does get a bit frustrating sometimes. All right, we've got to move on. Let's go to number 2, Pete. And a big fight announced, was it last week or this week? Haney and Diaz Jr.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. Look, Devin Haney, is he a bit like Shane Mosley? He reminds me a little of Shane Mosley. I mean, he's young, he's brash, he's going to get there. I mean, Diaz Jr. is very good as well. This is going to be an interesting fight. I mean, it's December 4th.
I'm going to stop you there, Peter. Peter, wash your mouth out with soap. Don't ever compare him to Sugar Shane Mosley.
No, but a lot of people, because he's only 23 years of age, there's a bit of Sugar Shane about him. It's just a comparison. He's not Sugar Shane, of course. But, I mean, look, this is going to be an interesting fight. And, look, I think as fans, we should be grateful now that we're getting all these young fighters coming through, and they're going to start being the future of the sport. And, UFC can do whatever they want and have whatever they want. We've got all these young stars coming through. If it's Tfmo Lopez, if it's George Cambosis, if it's Devin Haney, whoever it might be, it's coming through, and they're going to be in the future.
Tank Davis.
It's great for the sport. No, that'll be a good one. So that's December 4. And
can I say something? I hope Diaz Jr. beats him. I don't like Haney. I've got something about him. He rubs me up the wrong way. I don't like him.
Yeah, tend to agree. And obviously this one, Mongia, if that's pronounced right, and Rosado, that should be a pretty entertaining fight, I think.
Rosado's as tough as nails, and he's just old school. And Monguia, we saw him fight Hogan. We've seen him fight Aouni, who's fighting Tszyu. He's hot and cold. Sometimes he looks fantastic. Sometimes he looks ordinary.
Yeah.
So I don't know which one's going to turn up. I mean,
wasn't they trying to make him a superstar? Wasn't they going to build him into a superstar? And
I think he's in his early 20s. So, I mean, look, he's only 24, so he's learning, he's maturing. But Rosado's like walk in the park, and he's a tough hombre. This is going to be a very interesting fight.
Yeah, well, he's really a big middleweight too, isn't he, Rosado?
Yeah, really, really good. I think he's managed by what's his name? Samson Lakakovic, who's got all those real tough guys. So he doesn't manage buds. So this is going to be a real top fight.
And obviously trained by the great man, Freddie Roach, as well. So, No, that should be a good one. All right, well, that's the world news. That's this weekend, which will be a really good one. So to cap it all off, we've got a hell of a week of Australian boxing with Tim Tszyu, and then, of course, a doubleheader, followed by the next doubleheader, and then this fight next week. And then we've also got Crawford. Is that right? Tazzy, Crawford and Porter? Is that
Porter?
Yeah, that's November. I think it's the same date as Cambosis.
The week after, 27th. Okay.
The week after, is it?
Yeah, I think so. 27th, I think it is. Well, I've got a little thing on
George. Cambosis is the 27th as well.
27th, yeah. Well, I've got a little thing on George in a second, actually, before I do my talking point. But before we do that, we'll go into the hottest segment of the program, and that is Tassie's Tirade. And what do you got for us this week, mate? You've actually been pretty well behaved, I think, this week in the episode. So is there anything upsetting you?
Nah, mate, look, not really upsetting me. I've been holding off on this one because I know I'm going to probably piss a few people off that I know and friends, but it gets talked about a fair bit, and I just want to, just say my opinion, which I probably already give before on social media. The argument between people that say that, look, I've got to think about all these people that are boxing trainers that haven't fought. There's an argument that, it doesn't really matter. Well, I think it does. If you haven't fought and at a good level, how are you going to coach? How are you going to tell a kid what he's feeling in the corner? Because you haven't been there. You haven't been in the sauna losing weight. You haven't been there. All these trainers, and so many in Melbourne as well, like, pisses me off. All these, this one's a boxing trainer. Who the fuck are you? If I don't know you, you've done nothing in the sport. If I don't know your name in Australia, you're a nobody in boxing. I've been around for so long, trained with the best, fought with the best. All these guys that act like they're trainers, but, mate, what's your credentials? Like, where'd you find your boxing license in the freaking cornflake packet? So I know it's the old ongoing thing, but, mate, Eddie Futch fought. Freddie Roach fought. Floyd Sr. and Roger Mayweather fought. Talking to great coaches, Emmanuel Stewart fought. Johnny Lewis fought. You know what I mean? Not saying, they had a lot of fights, but I mean, at the end of the day, they've been in the ring. They know what it's like to take a punch. How are you going to teach a kid if you haven't been punched in the face? Like, you're just going to say a bit of pad work or this. When the guy comes back in the corner and he's hurt and he's thinking about giving up, what's your advice going to give him? Because you haven't been there. How the fuck are you going to say anything? You haven't been in that position. You haven't been hurt to the ribs, or you feel you're going to get knocked out, or you're weight drained, or in the sauna losing weight, and you think, stuff this year, I haven't had a proper meal for 2 weeks. You haven't done it. So all these little fancy Dan trainers, social media, I've been holding on to this. I was going to do this at the first tirade, but I'm over it. Yeah. Mate, most of you don't know shit about boxing. I'm not saying I'm the king and I know everything, but I'll tell you now, I'll back myself because I've fucking been there. Yeah. And sorry for swearing, but not sorry, really. Yeah. All these people that just get around boxing, I'm talking about, you can be a manager and promoter, that's okay. I'm talking about being a coach and being responsible. If you haven't been punched in the face, if you haven't fought, done the walk to the ring with your trainer in front of family and friends in a massive crowd, nerves, no one, because it's different. Sparring's nothing. Sparring's nothing. Fighting's different to sparring. There's no nerves in sparring. How about fighting in front of the bright lights, in front of a fucking crowd? All these trainers in Australia, and they're getting all this recognition on social media. Like, fuck off. Yeah. You're a fucking joke. Mate, I've been waiting for this for a while now. It's just a joke, mate. I know people disagree with me. I don't care. Yeah. Stick it up your ass. If you haven't fought, you got no job coaching someone, and I'm going to fucking say it now. I don't care. No,
I was just going to say, Tazzy, I probably won't be as eloquent as you just put it, but look, I 100% agree that unfortunately in boxing at the professional and amateur level,
do some pad work.
Yeah, they're unlike the other martial arts that are graded and very strictly overseen by different organisations as far as the yellow, blue, black, green, all the rest of the belts. Boxing is totally unregulated in that. So pretty much any person, and you see it, you just said yourself, so many people who've had no experience in boxing at all, probably watched it on TV or YouTube, can actually open a boxing gym and train fighters. And to me, that is bloody scary. And we've all been to fights, especially a lot of amateur fights where young kids or adults even have been put in and they're not. You can just see they're not ready, and that's always been a bit of a bugbear as well, Tazzy. I'm not saying you've got to been a great amateur or professional or been.
I'm not saying that either.
No, but you've got to have had some level of experience. And you're right. You see them on, there's obviously a massive difference between someone that takes PT sessions to an actual boxing trainer. And I hate the way they get almost intertwined into one, because being a PT, it should almost be law that, if you're putting something on social media or whatever, it's stipulated that you're a PT. You're not a boxing coach. You're a PT. But I'm with you, mate, because there's nothing that gets up gets my goat as much when you go to an amateur or professional show and you say, what the hell is this guy or girl doing in there? They haven't been taught properly, and should not happen.
The kid comes back to the corner, or kid or fighter, amateur or pro, and he needs that bit of guidance to change the fight, probably even save his life. Like, he's hurt. You got to know when he's had enough, but even just advise him. If you haven't been in that position, how can you? You don't do brain surgery if you haven't been a brain surgeon. You can't just, if you haven't been there, how do you know? It's all hypothetical. You don't know. You've got no proof. You can't explain it because you haven't been there.
Pete, do you think there's, it's probably impossible, but do you think even from the combat board there should be a bit more overseeing of the standard of some of the fight? And I'm sure they have discussions behind closed door, by the way, but you've done a million shows, and sure, you get to some events and you look at the bell rings for the first round and you go, oh my God, what is going to happen here? But we don't know. The combat board doesn't know. Does it need to be a little bit more policing from other outside sources to make sure these guys are actually ready to get in there?
Yeah, look, it's an interesting point. I mean, Angelo Dundee never fought, and he
was just an advisor. Like, Ali was amazing before he moved up.
Well, Gus D'Amato never fought. Gus D'Amato was, he trained Tyson and Floyd Patterson. So, I mean, look, Emmanuel Stewart never fought as a pro.
He was a good amateur, but
he was okay amateur. Yeah, he was okay. Look, as long as you've got amateur background at least, and understand the pros and safeties of what a fighter's going through. Because, I mean, you've got to remember, you've got a fighter in there, his heart rate's up at 180, 190 for 3 minutes. So that's all pretty good going there. Plus you're getting hit and he's hitting. So it's pretty high impact. When you understand your fighter and you know he's had enough, that's when I call a brave trainer, when he stops it early. Yeah. And that's when I say you're a great trainer. I don't like, if I see my fighter and I know he's fading, I'm going to stop it. Because especially if I know he's not a puncher and the other guy's a favourite going into the fight, you've got to stop the fight. I don't care what he's going to say.
Definitions of a good trainer, I suppose, isn't there? But
you've got to read the plate. That's what I'm saying. But the health and safety is paramount to every fighter that goes in there. You've got to understand the sport. You've got to be able to read the sport.
I know that, but they don't know who's getting in there on the night. They get a run sheet with who's on there. There's absolutely no policing whatsoever. They get registered, they get the medicals and bloods, and bang, you're in there. And I know it's almost impossible, because how do you go in and actually go into a gym and rank or rate a trainer and go, yep, okay, you're okay and you're not? I know it's very hard, but my other thing is it's the hindering of the fighters, Tazzy. I mean, you see it yourself. You get a lot of, look, let's face it, when you're a novice or when you're a kid, you get past a lot of fights purely based on talent or fitness or whatever. So you might, in that novice or intermediate stage, up to 5, 6, 7, 8 fights, you can get by purely on natural talent or conditioning or luck, whatever. But when you go into that next phase of, in the open waters, let's say, 10, 12 fights and beyond, that's unfortunately when you get found out, because you come up and those trainers can't help you.
Well, that's what I say, Lynden. I don't care what you've done as a junior. It doesn't mean shit to me. Like, it's good if you've got some junior trophies and some junior medals and junior national titles, but as a kid, you don't get hurt.
Yeah, you're right.
To me, when you turn senior and you're fighting as a man, now that's when it's for real, because you can get hurt. Now, as a kid, it's tippy-tappy, and it's whatever. I was a junior, as you was, whatever. But when you get up to when you're fighting as a man, that's when you can be hurt. It was when you can be seriously injured. That's when it all changes. So I don't get impressed when people come to me, oh, this kid's a good junior, he's won this, and this. I say, I'll see him in a few years. I don't really want to hear his name again. Until you turn as an adult, it's like so many people just fight as a junior. Well, big deal. If you didn't fight as a man, I don't really, it doesn't, to me, it doesn't mean shit.
And another point is before we move on, is that with all the social media stuff and the glorification of boxing, and almost like as people have been saying, you don't play boxing. Unfortunately, with a lot of things that's on social media, a lot of people think it's just that they see the punches, don't think they actually heard it.
I'll tell you a funny story.
Go ahead.
And this, I don't mince my words. I turned up to a training session of Jesse James Layer, and Nick Totoris was meant to spar Mohammed Abdullayev. I can't remember who ended up sparring Abdullayev. I think Julian Holler might have sparred him. There was a particular boxer that sparred another boxer. He was a cruiserweight. Now, I won't mention names, but the local Aussie boxer was very talented. And he was, I think he might have been 8-1 as a pro. Not going to mention names. He got dropped in sparring. He got dropped in the round, and I thought they were going to stop the round. And he went out against this Russian guy that was trained by Keith Adams, who was part of the Wade Warden stable, based in Vegas. And he came out, and the next round he flattened this kid. And the kid was wobbling up against the back brick of the gym. I won't mention what gym it is. Yep. I turn up to the fights 2 weeks later. This kid's fighting.
It's just wrong.
So I'm thinking, well, if I'm the board and the trainer that was with him is well credentialed, I'm going to tap him on the shoulder. I'm going to go, mate. Yeah. It doesn't matter what you've done. It's just here and now.
It's a tough gig, but that's what I like about martial arts. It's very well overseen as far as the ratings and rankings and belts and that and gradings, that sort of stuff. Boxing, as I said, anyone can be a boxing trainer. Anyone.
I never knew it was so bad because in Tazzy, a lot of the trainers in there are ex-fighters. I've come to Melbourne and it's a freak fest. Yeah. Everyone mentions, I don't know this gym, that there's that many gyms, and not putting people down, but I don't know them. As I said, I've been in the game my whole life and I lived the game. All these little pop-up gyms open up round, mate, and people go, this one, he's meant to be this and that, and I'm sorry, I don't want to be arrogant, but if I don't fucking know you, as I said, you've done nothing as an amateur or pro.
Keith Ellis never fought. He had one amateur fight and got beat. And I rate Keith as the best boxing brain Billy Hussein's ever fought. He's only fought as an amateur. So it doesn't look, but you take their brains out and it's pure boxing IQ. So I know guys that have been excellent. Well, I've been involved with excellent fighters, and you wouldn't have them in the corner because they're not capable of being in the corner, even though they're great fighters. So you've got to balance it up on the particular person, and it's hard to make a call. But I agree with what Taz is saying. How can you tell someone what the moon's like if you haven't been on the moon yourself? Yeah, at least, you've slept the night before, you had to make weight. Even if it was an amateur fight, you jump in, you have your amateur fight, you go through the nerves, you get scared, you win, you surprise yourself. Just little things that you need to do to compete.
Little things, that's exactly right. Even in the change rooms, when when your trainer goes, okay, it's time to go to the ring, well, that's a lonely walk, as you know, boys. And lots going in your head, especially when you're younger, when you're an amateur, and this is it now. Am I ready? Have I done enough? Did I do enough road work? Did I do enough sparring? All these different things. Like it's just it's good to know you got a guy with you who's been there. You got full faith and respect. You know what I mean? Like, I've trained with some great trainers, as you know. I'm actually spilling I never actually ever got the fight under Mick Hargraves because I rate Mick so much. His boxing.
His brother Kevin, who I trained under, was the best guy you'd ever want to train under.
Yeah, I heard that. I wish I was still fighting.
Yeah,
his brain was unbelievable.
Just before we move on, I think just to your point before about the Angelo Dundees and that not having fought, I think the little bit of difference that is that those types of guys have probably been around the best gyms in
Gyms.
America
Of
for
course,
a
that's
long
what I was just
time,
about.
and going
Massive
that way.
difference.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
guys that have just said,
Massive
"Hey, I like
difference.
boxing. I've seen it on TV. I can be a trainer."
Thank you.
That's the difference.
And that's a good point. I'm glad you said that, Lynden. Massive difference. I mean,
Massive, yeah, you're right.
Customato would have been around Joe Lewis and that. And I mean, Dundee,
Of course,
100%,
of course.
massive difference.
Yeah,
Massive,
it's a bit
massive.
different to
You're
someone
not-
that's
you're not
watched TikTok.
ordering Goladino and watching Rocky movies.
Yeah,
Thank
exactly.
you. Thank you.
Beautiful. Good one this week, Tazzy. Let's move on to Pete's segment. And we've got 10 questions for... I'll just straighten myself up there. Slip and weave questions for you, Pete. A little bit of a Canelo theme tonight. And then we'll race through the talking point and then jump into the quiz. So we'll get into it. Tazzy, you got your questions there. I'll go first. As I said, a bit of a Canelo theme tonight, Pete. True or false? Canelo is now the greatest Mexican fighter of all time.
I'm going to say true.
Yep, can't argue with it.
True or false? Triple G is no match for Canelo at super middleweight.
Yep, Triple G's no match for Canelo. No way.
And especially at super middleweight was
At any weight.
Yep.
At any weight.
True or false? Terence Crawford should go to PBC after the Porter fight. And I'm just saying because he's got one more fight left with Top Rank. All the best welterweights in the world are with PBC. Do you think he should jump ship and join so he gets the best fights?
Look, I think Bob Arum and Crawford have got a rocky relationship. Bob Arum keeps saying he loses a house every time he promotes him.
Yep.
And then he says he refuses to promote himself and he's very not media friendly or savvy. So look, they're button heads anyway. So I think something will happen there. And I think you'll see a real resurgence of Crawford because I think once you give him the big fights, he's ready to shine, this guy.
True or false? Andre Ward should come out of retirement to fight Canelo.
Love to see that.
He's been talking about
true.
it.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. Andre Ward, he's the man. He's the man. One of my favourite fighters of all time.
Would have been another Leonard Hagler, who knows? All right, number...
Ward's the one that beats him. Ward's got the style to beat Canelo.
I think so too. All right, number 3 for me. True or false? Tfmo Lopez is looking past George Cambosis. And the reason we've discussed a little bit in the past, but he's been talking about the Lomachenko rematch. He's been talking about fighting Josh Taylor. He's been talking about stepping up in weight. He's been talking about everyone except George Cambosis.
He has, and in recent media interviews, he's saying the fight's only going to go one round.
I saw that.
So, look, I don't know what they're in for. Cambosis is 5'8". He's strong. He's been 150 rounds with Manny Pacquiao. He's got the heart of a lion. He's hungry. He's going to do us proud. And I had a bit of a tiff with a Facebook guy about that on private messenger that he said it's going to be a mismatch. So I had to stick up for Tazzy because in Australia,
on Facebook, you give it to him, Pete?
Yeah, I kind of had to let him know about it, Tazzy.
You got his address? We'll go pay him a visit tonight.
Unfriended.
Next thing you know, Tazzy will be on TikTok.
Go ahead, Tazzy.
True or false? Takeshi Inoue will give Tim Tszyu his greatest test.
I don't know if he's his greatest test, but I'm expecting to give him hard rounds. And Inoue's a big, strong guy, and we saw him fight McGregor, and he went the distance. And Japanese fighters have just got that Shanghai warrior spirit heart. They don't quit. And he's a big boy. He's strong. So I guess he's going to give him a lot of quality rounds.
All right, another Canelo question. David Benavides should be Canelo's next opponent.
That's the one they're mentioning, and that could be interesting. I mean, I'd love to see Benavides be his next opponent. I think that could be the next big fight. And is with Samson Lakakovic as well. So Samson's got a lot of good fighters. I wish they do that fight. That could be very interesting.
Could be a good one.
I'll tell you another guy that I've mentioned is a Mexican as well. He was super middleweight champion, now he's light heavyweight, is Ramirez.
He's gone up to light heavy, southpaw. I've seen him fight in Macau quite a few times. He's actually a real good fighter.
Number 4 for you, Tazzy.
Who wins if Oscar Valdez fights Shakur Stevenson?
Shakur Stevenson.
I would agree.
I think Shakur now, he's becoming a man, and he's 24, and he's just starting to grow into the pros.
Yeah.
All right, my
True.
last one. You don't really have to answer this one if you don't want to. We don't want to burn any bridges here. But true or false? The Queensland doubleheader is better than the Newcastle doubleheader. And I'll just quickly say you've got the Queensland one is Lucas Brown, Django Apaloo, Andrew Hunt, Benny Kite. On the next night is Jai Pataia, Trent Broadhurst, and Isaac Hardman, and Adam Stow, as long as with the Coolwell and Zalewski fight. And then Newcastle, Moloney, Froyland, Cameron Hammond's on the card. That's probably about it at this stage. And on the Friday night is Gallen, Sam Goodman, and Harry Garside, and who will get against. We don't. Really
And
know.
Zappa's on there as well.
And Zappa's now on there as well, which I didn't know about. So which one do you think's the more attractive card? Or double header, I should say.
Pretty hard. I mean, probably the Newcastle one's got a touch more sparkle, but the Queensland one's very good as well. I mean, get the popcorn out,
Might be a
enjoy this
matter
one.
of the Newcastle one's probably got the bigger names. The Queensland ones might have the better matchups. But anyway.
Yeah,
we'll see.
so it's going to be real. This is what boxing's all about.
Either way, it's great. Yep.
What about the double header? What about the double header I'm doing in Tassie? What about that one?
Well, Tazzy and double headers go well together.
Yeah.
Last one, mate.
True or false? Tommy Fury will finally end the Jake Paul farce.
Let's hope he does. There'll be no one more cheering than me. And now we found out that Liam Paro is going to be on the undercard, but not announced yet. So, yeah, it's going to be very interesting. I hope he does. I really hope he does, because these YouTubers, Tazzy, they've got to go, because they're getting on box.
YouTubers, TikTokers, all of them, mate. Get rid of them.
I agree. All right.
They should all move into an island and execute all of them.
That's heavy stuff, Tazzy. Ease that one down, mate. You don't get too heavy.
But anyway.
I was watching a bit of World War II stuff last night. So.
I like the idea of rounding them up on an island and leaving them there. The other part, maybe not.
But no execution.
All right. Okay, well, it's my turn for the most anticipated segment of the night, in my eyes anyway. It's Lynden's Talking Point. Now, this is, we should be able to race through this one pretty quickly. Again, it's Canelo theme. We've talked about it a lot, or a lot of boxing fans have talked about it a lot, and I'll get to it and we'll get straight into it. It is Canelo Alvarez would have beaten Floyd Mayweather if he had more experience. Now, what I'll say about that is a lot of people say it was too early, he was too young, he was, it wasn't ready for Floyd. I say that's bullshit. I think that Canelo had already won a couple of world titles by that stage. It had 35, 40 fights by that stage. Floyd Mayweather was 36 years old. I think it's another Mayweather-Pacquiao situation. I don't think it matters when they fight. Floyd Mayweather beats him 10 times out of 10. What do you think, Tazzy?
Yeah, I agree, mate. I love Canelo, but, I mean, look, Floyd can't take a trick. He beats Canelo. Canelo's too young. Beats Manny. Manny's too old. Was 5 years past the bet. Doesn't matter what he does. They'll find an excuse every time. You got to realise how great he was to beat a guy like Canelo, who was still had a heap of fights, won more titles. They wanted Floyd. They pushed for it. It wouldn't matter what Floyd does. They'll always pick something with him. He was just a class act, and no one was could get the win over him. Simple as that. He was just that damn good. So I think as great as Canelo is, styles make fights, and Canelo doesn't beat Floyd any era.
What do you think, Pete?
I think Floyd would have been too classy for Canelo. Floyd, I mean, we got to give Floyd credit. He was an exceptional fighter. Floyd, up at peak Floyd and against a peak Pacquiao in 09 when Pacquiao was knocking out Paro and knocking out Hatton and De La Hoya.
Biggest fight ever.
I think he would have knocked Mayweather out. That's just my opinion. But I don't think there's anyone that can beat Floyd apart from Manny in this era in the last 30 years.
Well, the thing is, too, I mean, if you look at that fight, Canelo, it would have been generous to give him more than probably 2 rounds that he won. I thought Mayweather, and that was Canelo. Mayweather's. Hopefully they've never judged again. But what I loved about that fight with Floyd, you can see at some stage Floyd actually backing Canelo up and having him on the ropes and teeing off on Canelo with his back on the ropes. Now, those people that say that Floyd ran and he boxed and never engaged, never saw and have never really watched boxing, because he took Canelo won, took centre ring, dictated the whole fight, and Canelo could barely lay a hand on him. So that's the definition of a great, or the epitome of a great fighter who can make other great fighters look ordinary, which is what he did.
And the thing is, Lynden, when we talk Floyd, when I talk Floyd, I don't talk about any of the recent fights Floyd had later on. Floyd is a super featherweight, lightweight, was a killer. He was fast, he was aggressive. You got to understand the big fights are at waterweight. Okay, so you finish up in waterweight, that's where the big fights are. The Moseys, the De La Hoyas, the Pacquiao, even heavier, light middleweight. You got to understand, so he's a small guy with bad hands. He's not originally a waterweight like Pacquiao as well, but he's not a power puncher like Pacquiao, so he has to outbox him. He had to change his style. So obviously with the bigger guys, and he's getting a bit old, so the legs aren't as good like Ali. Like your legs aren't, go on you. First thing that goes in boxing is your legs and then your chin. He had to adjust to fighting more smarter, probably a slower pace, more pot shotting, and he did. And he got wins over some great fighters by changing their style. So the Pretty Boy and the Money May are two different fighters. Two different fighters. So when I talk about Floyd, when we're talking all the time, I talk about the wins over Corrales and people like that and Gaddy and, because when we seen him later on, he had to adjust and he made those adjustments,
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, sorry, go ahead, mate, quick.
One thing, I'll give Floyd credit. When he got hurt, he knew how to tie up the fighter. He wasn't stupid. He'd never, like when Mosey clocked him a few times, he grabbed Mosey's hand, he bear hugged him. You've got to get in close. You've got to get the referee to get in there and buy that time. He wasn't stupid. You see, Zab Judo, when he got hit from Tszyu, I don't know what was going through his brain. And when I interviewed him, I said, mate, did anyone ever talk to you about that? Like actually taking a bit of time when you're on the floor and clearing your head before you stand up. But Mayweather never went on the ground. But each time Mayweather got a little wobbly, he knew how to grab them and tie him up. And he would have thought about that because he would have thought it's going to be a time when I'm going to get hurt. And he was experienced that. He would have probably practiced in the gym.
It was. Hey, just one thing, a little extra on the talking point tonight that I want to bring up, and this is what was just sort of caught my eye this week. Now, a little bit of return serve here. We've been talking about George's lack of exposure by the Aussie media, and you can see here they've had a bit of a slap back at George. You can see here George Cambosis' fake media fight. So what it is basically saying is that this is it was on the Herald Sun, but I think it's been shared from the Daily Telegraph, pretty much saying that these guys have given George as much attention as they as he wants, but he won't actually reciprocate. So you can see here, says here why a couple of mainstream journalists covering. So why are there only a couple of mainstream journalists covering Cambosis? Simple. His attitude towards media. Says here, spoke to him 8 months ago. Good interview. Said they'd set up a photo shoot and a proper sit down. His dad Jim wouldn't return phone calls or emails or texts, anything like that. They tried to make contact another 2 times and were ignored 2 times. So it's interesting that the media, Pete, is clapping back at Team Cambosis.
Yeah, look, George is a great kid and Jimmy, his dad's, they're terrific people.
You just never see it though, do you? A newspaper actually writing an article clapping back at an athlete. Yeah,
and obviously being mucked about by Triller. They probably had, a lot of cancellations and things like that. But yeah, Georgie, I mean, if you message him, he messages straight back. I've interviewed him a couple, maybe 3 or 4 times. So he's never knocked back an interview. He's always been good with me. Just speaking with me, I mean, he's great. But I've got a personal relationship with him and his dad. So it's a bit different. But I'm sure other media outlets, if you're respectful enough, he will give you an interview.
Yeah.
He's not gung-ho or anything. If you chase him up, you'll get him.
Well, you can see there, Tazzy says, Cambosis claims Australia's boxing media has shown him disrespect by not promoting his career-defining fight, but respect is a two-way street. You can see here, they're saying he's had run-ins with at least 2 other boxing journalists and all the rest of it. So, yeah, as I said, I don't necessarily agree with it, but it's interesting that a newspaper would write an article pretty much defending themselves against a boxer.
Yeah. First I've heard of it. I mean, I've been an advocate for the lack of media that he's had. I mean, I think someone of this fight, the magnitude of this fight versus Lopez, how it's just sort of flying under the radar. So I mean, I'm really puzzled why such one of the biggest fights with an Aussie in history, in boxing history, from Australia, the lack of news he's had. So I don't know if there's any truth to that or not. I don't know, but as I said, look, I just hope that he goes well, that he finally gets what he deserves and brings the belt home. I can't wait to see it. It's actually, I looked at the calendar today, it's getting close, so I'm actually really looking forward to it.
A couple of weeks away, yep, for sure. No, well, hopefully when if he does win the titles, maybe he'll come back and defend them. It might be another big no limit show in conjunction with his promoters over there. Who knows? But anyway, it's only a couple of weeks away, and we'll obviously cover that in depth as we get closer. Well, let's move on to the last segment that we have, and that is the boxing deep dive quiz, the super fight. Tazzy Brown versus Peter Maniatis. Now, last week, Pete got the chocolates. Tazzy was not impressed at all and has been pouting all week, so it's his time for revenge. So quickly to go over the rules. Blurt your name out. I will then say who was first. Just remember, I think we discussed it during the week that sometimes you guys might have a split-second delay compared to what I can.
He's got 2 seconds on me. He's got 2 seconds on me every time.
2 seconds. So if it does appear that you might have got in first, trust me, my call, I can see both of you at the same time.
It's like I'm Usain Bolt, and have got me a couple of 100 metres behind before the fucking gun goes off.
All right. So, and if you get it, when you answer the question, if you get it wrong, there's no going back. You don't get another crack at it. The other one will get a free hit, and if he doesn't get it wrong, then we move on. All right, number one, we've got 5 Aussie questions, followed by 5 world questions. Number one, what year did Danny Green turn pro?
Tazzy. 2001.
100% right. Yep, 2001 after the 2000 Olympics.
I'll tell you why. I made debut 2 weeks before him in the same team, Phoenix.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, number 2, who did Anthony Mundine fight in his US debut?
Tazzy.
Yes, Tazzy.
Bronco McCart.
Certainly did. At the Palms Hotel and Casino, that was. 2 for Tazzy. Number 3, who did Sam Solomon beat to win the IBF middleweight title?
Peter.
Tazzy.
Yes, Peter.
Felix Stern.
Certainly did, in Germany. What a win that was too. Number 4, what did Isaac Hardman's first 3 fights have in common?
Peter.
Tazzy?
All first round KOs.
They were. All first round KOs, yep. Number 5, so it's 3-1 for Tazzy. What Aussie boxer is known as the Blonde Bomber?
Peter. Tazzy.
Peter?
The Blonde Bomber.
The Blonde Bomber. 5, 4, 3, 2,
I don't know.
1. The free hit to you, Tazzy.
Fuck, I'm only going to take a guess here. Roll Murdoch.
Ebony Bridges, the Blonde Bomber.
Oh.
We all know Ebony, I'm assuming. 3-1. We go into the world questions now. Number 6. What was the first world title? So what title was the first won by Roy Jones Jr.?
Tazzy.
Yes, Tazzy. What title?
The IBF middleweight title.
Certainly was, against Bernard Hopkins. What a fight that was on the undercard of Riddick Bowe, Jesse Ferguson. It was.
He done it with one hand as well. Yep. One hand.
4-1. Number 7. What was the first ever fight held at the Mirage in Las Vegas?
I didn't get the question.
What fight? What was the first ever fight held at the Mirage in Las Vegas? So what was the first ever world title fight held at the Mirage in Las Vegas? 1989 it was.
Tazzy.
Yes, Tazzy.
I'm only taking a guess.
Yeah.
Mike Tyson versus Razor Ruddock.
Leonard Duran 3.
Peter.
Yeah, sorry. Are you going to answer?
Yeah, I haven't answered
I
yet.
thought you said you passed on it. All right, go ahead.
I was going to go Mike Tyson versus Michael Spinks.
No, that was in Atlantic City, that one. Leonard Duran 3. I actually gave you the answer before you answered. You must have heard me. Leonard Duran 3, it was. Was the first ever fight held at the Mirage. So still 4-1, I think it was.
Yeah.
Number 8. In what round did Ray Mercer knock out Tommy Morrison?
Tazzy.
Peter.
The 5th.
It was round 5, one of the best knockouts of all time. 4-2. Number 9. This is another location question. What casino hosted the De La Hoya Trinidad fight?
Tazzy.
Yes, Tazzy.
Caesar's Palace.
No, Pete.
Peter.
Yep.
MGM Grand.
No, it was the Mandalay Bay was where it was held. So still 4-2. Is it 4-2? So we're going for a bit of pride here. Who am I? I was born on October 6th, 1978. As an amateur, I won a bronze medal at the 1996 World Junior Championships before turning pro in 1997. After
Peter.
winning... Yes, Peter.
Floyd Mayweather.
Incorrect. Tazzy, you get all the clues here. This is a real way to put an exclamation mark on the night. After winning my first 38 fights, I won my first world title in 2005 in a massive upset. I defended the title 4 times before moving up in weight to challenge for a second title, where I suffered my first loss. After 2 comeback wins, I was demolished in 2 rounds in another attempt at a world title. I retired for 3 years before attempting a comeback, where I was stopped in 9 rounds, which officially ended my career. Since my retirement, I've been a trainer, manager and promoter, and my son recently turned professional. I am...
Peter.
Peter! Not back yet, Pete. Got to let him answer. 5.
Yeah, Peter's gone. He's already out of it.
He's out. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. All right, Pete, you can have a crack at it.
Ricky Hatton.
Ricky Hatton was the man. Yep. Ricky Hatton. Ricky, Fatton. I think he renamed himself. All right, well, that's...
Winner.
So...
Yep, you won, Tassie. Couldn't go back to back.
I don't think anyone's gone back to back yet.
There's a jinx.
We can't. So you're going to go and party this week, and then I'm going to be on coffees and Red Bull all week, getting into TV ringside magazines and stuff. So
I'm going straight to the Open, and me mate Nick Rush and Bar Bambi. I'm getting dressed and going straight to the Open with Chris Judd and Rebecca Judd.
Wow.
All right. Well, that was the quiz, and that was the show. So big thanks to Andy Moloney for joining us as our guest tonight and going over the Aussie news. I'll have more, obviously, updates as we get closer to the event. Next week, we'll cover the Tszyu Inoue fight, which happens the night before we record this show. So we'll have a full review of that. And, and obviously I think this weekend is a couple other big fights overseas. So we'll cover all that next week. Thanks again, guys. Congratulations to you, Tazzy, for your win in the quiz.
Well done, Tazzy.
And,
thanks. I'm going to have a good weekend this weekend.
And Pete, you got a bit of work to do after tonight. Yeah. So thanks again, guys. And we'll see you next week for Boxing Deep Dive.
Thanks, mate.